Hello and welcome to the fourth in our series of VAT Chats with me, Nikki. Today I am joined by the wonderful Hilary Bevan, Director of Bevan VAT Consulting and also Treasurer to the VAT Practitioners Group. More on both of those things later in our discussion, I am sure. Before we start off, just to provide a little bit of background as to what we're doing with the VAT Chat, it's really there whether you're at the start of your career, maybe you're a pivot, maybe you've been in VAT for a while, but just opening your eyes to some of the opportunities that there are out there in the world of VAT and indirect taxes. So I hope that you will enjoy this chat as much as I will with Hilary. So welcome to the hot seat.
Very much.
So as always, I'm not going to give too much of a background introduction, but I am going to ask you, how did you find yourself in the world of VAT, Hilary, and what has kept you here?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that most people I know didn't actually choose a career in VAT. So I remember being at a VAT Practitioners Group conference one year, and someone actually asked everyone in the room, how many of you chose a career in VAT? And I think there was one person who put their hand up. Everyone else fell into it by accident. So I started off originally in 1998 at a general practice firm, and I did a little bit of everything. So I did year-end accounts, management accounts, VAT returns, payroll, corporation tax, audits, all of that.
Everything.
And I'm one of those people who I actually quite like exams. So I did my AAT qualification and then ACCA. And then I was like, what can I do next? What can I do next? And I did the CIOT, the Chartered Institute of Taxation qualification. And me passing that coincided with the guy who'd been in charge of VAT in the firm since 1973 when it when it started in the UK, deciding it was about time he wanted to retire. So I started picking up and taking over the VAT from him, and I actually managed to grow it because I fell in love with it. And as most people who ended up working in VAT do, I just found it so interesting. So I built up the practice much more. So at the start, everyone in the firm, if they had a VAT question, they would come to me. So if they're doing an audit and they're not sure what the VAT treatment is, if one of their clients has a question from HMRC, or if they're doing a VAT return, I would help with all of that. And it got to the point where I was doing about half the time VAT, half the time other account stuff. And I wanted more. I wanted to do just VAT. Um, and through my membership of the VAT Practitioners Group, I'd met a chap called Barry who was wanting to retire. And so it was just luck and timing that he actually sold his client base to me, which made it much less scary. So I wasn't starting completely from nothing. And that was in 2018. So I left the practice I worked for and set up my own company, just dealing with VAT queries. So I'll work mostly with firms of accountants, and they'll ring me up and they'll say, our clients bought a pub, they're converting it into flats. What VAT should they be charged? Can they get the VAT back? Or someone might say, we've invented this new food product. Is it a zero rated cake or standard rated confectionery? All of those things. And I think one of your questions was what's kept me here. And I think it's the variety and the interest in it. So, you'll work on at least 10 different queries in a week. The people are wonderful. It's really interesting because you have to understand exactly what's happening. Someone says, is this a cake or is it confectionery? You can't just look at it and know the answer. You need to know what the ingredients are, what the cooking process is, how someone eats it, how it's held out for
Yeah.
sale. So you really get to understand a business properly and get to ask questions and find out what they're doing. And I think, yeah, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, no, and especially when, I think when people think of VAT and complexity, it is the food cases which come to mind, isn't it? We think about Pringles and reading through that judgment and going, oh, I'm not sure I ever want to eat one again, ever, after
Doesn't make
after
the sound
that's happened
appealing,
to
does
it.
it?
But as you say, kind of go, and as VAT people, we don't get told to we're being too nosy. It's like we need to know this to so you can find out you've got a reason to ask
Yeah, it's a good
questions.
excuse to be nosy.
Um, and it sounds like, people retiring, it happened at the right times for you as well, that you were able to take those kind of steps up. You had your qualifications, and I can certainly relate to the wanting to do more exams. I did too many myself.
No such thing as too
Yeah.
many.
There's still ones I haven't. I didn't do the indirect tax CTA, so that's still on, still
So,
on the
so
table.
when I did
Yeah.
mine, they didn't actually have an indirect taxes route. So I did the qualification with the Institute of Indirect Taxation after the CTA one,
Oh
which
my
was a
goodness.
completely separate organisation at that time. And then a year after I did it, they merged. So yeah, I timed that a bit badly. So there was,
Oh.
but it's an extra qualification. It was
Mm.
really interesting stuff. So look at the benefits, not the downside.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I think after I got my CTA, I did ask the question. I was like, if I do the VAT exams, will I get any additional letters or a special piece of No, you
No.
don't. So I thought I'll put it on ice for now. But that all sounds very like it's not quite a sort of linear path, as in it's perhaps not a traditional route. You're in a firm, often we expect, you kind of climb up the rungs. And as you say, you had your whole VAT business there. So it's like, what's next? And these opportunities, they presented themselves and you grab them,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
It's
just, yeah.
it's just good luck being in the right place, the right time, and obviously hard work as well
Well,
because you're
yes, yeah,
having the
yeah.
exams and stuff. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to luck, just being in the right place at the right time, and yeah, there's not a lot you can do to influence that.
As you said, you got yourself to be in that right place to grab those opportunities when they came.
Yeah,
And it's interesting as well. You've mentioned it a couple of times. There's the VAT Practitioners Group, and that's obviously how you got your break into running your own firm as well for almost a decade now, and lots of award nominations recently I've seen. So
yeah.
congratulations for
Thank
that
you
as
very
well.
much.
Um, so what is it? The VAT
So it's a
Practitioners Group.
it's a group of geeks, and I'm saying that as a compliment, not as a bad, that I don't see that as a bad thing. So it's basically a membership organisation for people who specialise in VAT, and it's quite a mixture. They don't all necessarily have the same background as me. So some people have worked with HMRC, some people are lawyers, some people are accountants, some people are neither. Some people work within organisations. So we used to have a lady in our chapter who worked for Northumbrian Water. There's people from universities. There's people from motor dealers, motor manufacturers. So all sorts of different people, but just people who have an interest in VAT. And we're split into local chapters, although it's slightly more flexible now because most of us meet online. So actually people from further afield can join in, but we're split broadly locally. And we meet up once a month just to talk about VAT things. And sometimes that might be a specific case. So this month, I suspect we'll be talking about the Colchester Institute Corporation and all the VAT treatment of government funding for providing free education at further education institutions. So we might talk about a big case if there's been a case in the press. But actually, what it's really good for, what I find the most benefit from, is just being able to ask people questions. Because particularly when you're in practice, and there's only me and my colleague Sarah, so we're not a massive team with loads of people to ask. So just to be able to say to somebody, I've come across this question. Has anyone come across it before? And even if they say, oh no, that's really weird, at least it makes you feel a bit better about the fact
Yeah.
that you haven't come across it before as well. But we'll talk it through and we'll say, oh, well, actually, this is the legislation that probably applies. Or someone will say, oh, I remember there was a case about that years ago. I'll find out what it was called. And everyone's just really supportive and really open to collaboration. And because there's people in different industries, you can always find someone who knows the answer if you don't. And we have a conference once a year. I'm going to do a shameless plug for the conference now, if
That's okay.
anybody's interested. It's the 12th of June in Milton Keynes at Hotel Latour, which we're very
Very,
excited about because they had a
very
VAT
apt.
case.
Yeah.
uh, with the only people who have a conference at a hotel and giggle about the fact that the hotel was in a VAT case. But it's really interesting. So we've got Chris Nyland is doing a property tax update. We've got Lindsay Frawley is talking about penalties and when directors might be liable for them. We've got representatives from HMRC talking about e-invoicing. We've got a case law update. We've got all sorts of really interesting things. So it's a great day for the technical content, but also for meeting people. Because as I said, the best thing about the VAT Practitioners Group, it is the people and building those connections. So yeah, we'll be in the bar the night before having a good time.
I think it's definitely shattering any stereotypes that we have of, a VAT person who sits and just is in a corner, looking through legislation, maybe leafing through the details of cases, but actually there is the interaction with other humans and enjoying the communication. Because I think, sometimes there is still that stereotype hanging around. I think when people say you work in VAT, there's almost a look of shock. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. A lot of people think that you have to be really good at maths and things like that to get into accountancy and VAT in particular. But actually, the maths that you have to do is no harder than the maths you do at GCSE. You're not having to do differential equations. You're not having to do any of that sort of stuff. And it's one of those roles in finance where you actually get the best of both worlds, because yes, I am sitting with it with the VAT legislation. You work through it to find an answer. So there is the technical side of it, but there also is that side where you've got the communication and the chatting. Because we mentioned earlier about having to understand exactly what a business does, what the services they provide to get the VAT treatment. But also at the same time, once you've found that and used that to find the answer in the legislation, you've then got to explain that in understandable English to somebody
Yeah.
who's not a VAT specialist. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the people side of it and you get the technical
Mm.
side. So yeah, it's really good fun.
Ah, also, and it's almost kind of permeating through the screen even. Your enthusiasm, merge the words together. I can just see like you're lighting up when you're talking about it. It's not forced, it's not under duress that you're saying this.
No, no, you're
It's
not
coming
paying
across
me
as
to
a
say that.
genuine,
I,
no
I,
money
I
has
was at
changed hands.
I was at a networking event last night, and when I said I worked in
Mm.
VAT, one lady said, "Oh, my son's just done a project on tax for his
Yeah.
I think it was an A level. I can't remember what A level it was, but he's just done a project on tax. He says he's interested in it. I don't know why. It sounds awful." And obviously that just set me off, and I started telling her how wonderful it was and how that what he should do is decide to be a tax advisor and
Mm.
have a whole enjoyable career ahead of him in tax. So hopefully, I might have a chat with him
Oh,
and talk to him
nice.
about different options and
Yeah.
what you can do.
Oh, that's awesome. So directly impacting on the next generation. Because I
Yeah,
know something I've noticed in my couple of decades almost working in tax, that VAT and indirect taxes people have always been, I mean, obviously there's, a lot of demand in other areas as well, but it just seems to be one that has been really consistent, whether we've had particular changes. I know, in personal tax, when there've been certain changes, they're like, oh, we need lots of people who are expert in this particular area. If I've explained that, perhaps not so well, but for VAT, other indirect taxes, especially as the number of indirect taxes seems to be increasing exponentially, um, there just seems to be like this constant need. Is that something you've come across as well?
yeah, and I think part of it is perhaps people being more careful and worrying more about stuff. So I think there's things that in the past people would have just thought, well, I don't actually know the answer, but it doesn't really matter. I'll stick it in. It'll be fine. I think people, I mean, maybe I'm just lucky I work with good clients, but people seem to have a desire to get things right and to
Totally.
understand the answer. And I think that understanding the answer is important as well. So that's one of the things we try and do is educate our clients as well. So I'm never going to reply to an email saying, yes, that's standard rated, full stop. It's standard rated because they're doing this, because
Yeah.
this is the exemption. They don't fall into it because they're not an eligible body. I'll make sure they understand why, because then if they get the same question again, they'll know the
Yeah.
answer. And even if they don't have the confidence or if it's more complex, at least it'll ring a little bell and they'll think, oh,
Mm.
there's something about this we need to look at.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to raise awareness. So we're trying with all our clients, but I think just in general in the public, we need to raise awareness of VAT and what it impacts. And there's stories in the press all the time about, oh, there's because of the war in Iran, we should reduce the VAT on electric and gas so
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah.
we're not paying as much and things like that. But there's not really a proper dialogue from anybody who understands what the implications of that would be. Reducing the VAT rate on that is probably only going to benefit the suppliers, not the
Yes,
customers,
yeah.
unless they are required by law to pass on the
To pass it
reduction to
on.
customers.
Yeah.
So I think there does need to be some more education in the country as a whole as to VAT and how it works and what the implications are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, certainly, because it's whenever I see that, I go, but we've seen what happens because when they reduce rates, the suppliers keep it all the same, and then it just becomes a bit more.
Yeah,
I think, guess indirectly, if they then spend that on more employees, you could. It's a very interesting
it,
argument once you
it is.
start
Yeah,
getting into that policy side of things.
you need a very
Um,
clever economist, I think, to look at it and explain it properly.
and absolutely, it's above my I do basic economics. That's my limit. Something I wanted to come back to is, as you do run your own firm, I am assuming that you have to wear lots of different metaphorical hats, perhaps physical ones as well. I don't know. So you might have your answering your VAT queries, talking to your clients, you're working with your colleague, you have business development, and probably a whole bunch of other things that I haven't even touched on. So how do you kind of split your time between, the fun stuff and then maybe some of the more
Yeah,
administrative
it
or
is really difficult. It definitely is a challenge. And I think part of what helps is having a really good community around you, I think. So I'm a director of Darlington Business Club. And so that's lots of different, not just business owners, but people who work in businesses. But usually, if you have an issue, other people have worked through it. But also the same with the VAT Practitioners Group. There's lots of people there who own their own practices. So you can say, oh, what insurance company do you use? What level do
yeah,
you think you need to go to for your professional indemnity insurance?
yeah,
Um, so I think, yeah, collaboration and being open, and it works both ways. There's a couple of people I've provided that advice to in the past, and they've got in touch and said, we've set up our own accountancy firm now. We've left the firm we were working at.
yeah,
And I always say, if you want to get together for a cuppa and have a chat about what it's like running your own business, we can
yeah,
do that. And I think sometimes people are scared to ask because you think that people will be very private. But actually, most people I've come across, if you ask them how they did something, they're really happy to share and really pleased that you want to know about it. And they'll because there's enough work for everybody. And technically, people might be in competition with each other, but really, we're all going to do better if we all help each other.
yeah. No, I really like that sentiment as well. And certainly when I was setting up on my own with my weird and wonderful, not like weird portfolio of things rather than, there's a lot of things to think about. You just mentioned professional indemnity insurance. I went, oh, yes, I had lots of conversations about that and
Yeah.
practicing certificates and all this kind of stuff that there's so much around it to even just get to signing up your first client, risk management stuff,
Lots of lists.
AMLs, KYC. Yeah, I've got loads of process. That's my governance and risk side. I have lots of processes, and then hopefully my controls are working to make sure it all gets done. So I guess on that theme as well, as it's a hot topic at the moment, maybe it will still be for a while. But do you use AI much in your work to try and help with managing some of the workload?
To an extent, but I think we're still at the stage of experimentation and finding out if it works. So we had one, I'm not going to mention any names, lots of providers are out there.
Yeah.
But we had one which was backed by a tax organisation, and the idea was it would get the answer from the legislation. It was a closed system and it would give you the right answer. And there were a couple of times where it was getting really quite basic stuff wrong. Like there was a question I asked it about Hungary, and it said because Hungary isn't in the EU, something, something, something. And I had to say, can you look at that again? Because I think they are. And another one where it said something didn't count towards the VAT registration threshold because it was zero rated. And when you tell it, it comes back and says, "Oh yes, actually, you're quite right." Um, but then it got to a point where I don't know if people have been complaining about getting stuff wrong, but it started hedging its bets. So you'd
Okay.
ask it a question and it would say, oh, well, if it's a cake, it's zero rated. If it's confectionery, it's standard rated. And you think, well, I already know that. What I've asked you is which is it?
Yeah.
Um, so we'd had that for a year because that was the minimum you could sign up for. And we thought we'd just see
Okay.
how well it worked. Got rid of it because it was because once you've got to the point where you can't trust it,
Yeah.
there's no point in having it because you spend more time checking it. Um, we've now got one that we're just trialing at the moment, that actually seems really good because it's giving you links to the legislation and the guidance when you ask a
Nice.
question. So you can see exactly where it came from. So that's what we've been using it for more, rather than actually writing an answer for us, because it might not think of the things that you would think to mention to the client.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, think about this. It doesn't have a commercial mind. It
Mm,
just basically is a very good search engine for the VAT
got
legislation
you.
and guidance. So I can say, can you find me court cases on this topic? And
Yeah.
it will go through and it will find them. So as a research tool,
Yeah.
it's working really, really well. But there are limits as to what you can
Mm.
get it to do. Yeah,
I
but
think
you
that,
you never know. We might get there one day.
yeah, no, I think just thinking about the amount of case law, because I think every time you send an update every week, there's usually kind of 3 to 5 cases every week. You think how long that has been in existence. You go, that's a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So to have that as a tool as well, to try and
Yeah,
pick
and
up
because
things that,
quite often you do think, oh, I remember there was a case about that, but you can't remember the name
mm,
of the case at all. So to be able to search, that's what the large language models do really well, is actually being able to take some garbled stuff about, oh, I remember there was a case about 15 years ago about this, and it will actually go, oh, is this what you mean? So yeah, it's really useful for
in
that.
that way. Yeah, definitely. No, I could, some cases I could tell you all the details about who did what and it was zero rated rather than standard rated, but could not give you the name of the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think then my final question for our chat today is going to be the question I ask all my guests around Hilary starting out, and what advice would you give to yourself and or anyone else who might be starting out, at a crossroads in their VAT or tax or accounting journey?
Yeah, I think advice to anybody, definitely go for VAT. It's the best tax. It's the most interesting. It's the one you want to do. I think advice to my old self. I mean, I wouldn't say too much because I don't want to change too much. The butterfly effect and all that. I've ended up doing something that I absolutely love, so I don't want to mess with anything in case it changes the course of history. But I think just don't worry about stuff too much. I mean, it's easier said than done, isn't it? You can't stop your brain working the way that it works. But I think when I was younger, I would spend an awful lot of time worrying about things. And I think the key thing is just as long as you work hard and you try your best, and if something does go wrong, that's fine. We're human. We're not doing brain surgery here. Nobody is going to die because we've got the VAT treatment wrong. The important thing is that you accept it and you find out how to fix it. So if you go to somebody and say, I'm terribly sorry, this wasn't correct, but this is what I've worked out we can do about it. This is how we can put it right. And most times, as long as you're open and honest, people will be happy with that. So I think just yeah, don't worry about stuff. Own up if something goes wrong, see what you can do to fix it straight away and talk to somebody else. If you're not sure how to fix it, get somebody else to help you. And yeah, go for that.
Go for that. I was just wondering, is there like a VAT board that's paying you?
Maybe we should set one up and try and get some government funding.
Put that one to one side. I like the idea in theory. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Hilary. It's been lovely chatting. And as I said, I think your enthusiasm has shone throughout. Um, it's amazing to see someone as well who's, gone with VAT, expanded the amount of VAT, running their own business for nearly a decade as well, getting recognition for it as well. It's awesome to see. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Hilary, to share the love of VAT, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone feel free to email me. It's hilary@bevanvat.co.uk, or I'm on LinkedIn. If you'd like to share, we can connect and you'll probably see me share either running pictures or stories about VAT.
Ever the two together, or no?
Sometimes I have given an explanation of the VAT treatment of buildings on top of Ingleborough, which is one of the Yorkshire Three Peaks.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Love it. Well, thank you again so much, Hilary. And I will look forward to speaking to you soon. And I will be looking forward to sharing some more VAT chats in the very near future. See you very soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.